Horizon Forbidden West will be here in just a few weeks, and I'm on a mission to create these guides for everyone playing Zero Dawn for the first time, and also for all of us replaying the original Horizon game to get hyped for the sequel. In this video, we're covering the notoriously difficult Stalkers, a tough machine made even tougher by the fact that you almost always have to fight a pack of 3 of them at a time. Don't worry though, I've got a great strategy for you guys that will actually let you deal with just one at a time, even when you run into a full pack. So even if you have played before, stick around, because I bet you'll learn something new. As I mentioned, Stalkers can be really tough, primarily because you almost always have to fight more than one at once. If you could just fight one Stalker, it would be much more manageable, but usually they come in packs of 3, and fighting all of them becomes super chaotic. Now that's not to say Stalkers aren't strong individually. No, they're not as strong as something like a Thunderjaw or a Deathbringer, of course, they're more a mid-tier machine. But they do have some pretty strong attacks. Their tail swipe in particular can deal a ton of damage, and the dart gun is really annoying too. Still, if you only had to deal with one Stalker, things would be a lot easier. So what if I told you there was a way to deal with just one at a time, even when you've got a pack of 3 to deal with? Well, that's exactly what this strategy will allow you to do. So let's dive into it. Now we actually need quite a bit of gear for this strategy, and all of it can be purchased at the Day Tower Merchant, which is way before you would run into any Stalkers anyway. Besides the 2 demonic Stalker sites in the Frozen Wilds, Stalkers only show up in the jungle biome south of Meridian, so the gear we're using isn't anything special. The first thing we need is the Karja Sharp Shot Bow, which gives us access to Tear Blast arrows. Those are going to come in handy to knock off the Dart Gun and Stealth Generator, which, as we can see in the machine catalog, are weak to tear. Next, we need the Karja Sling for shock and freeze bombs. The Stalker's body is weak to shock, and freezing any machine gives us a big damage multiplier, so we'll be using both of those bombs. We're also going to want to pick up the Shadow Hunter Bow, which gives us access to hardpoint arrows. These are going to be our main tool for dealing damage. And finally, the secret sauce for this strategy is a Rope Caster. Now, I'm not typically a fan of using a Rope Caster excessively, but fighting a pack of Stalkers is just so hectic that I think you need it to make the fight manageable. I'm going to use the blue Karja Rope Caster, but if you can afford it, I would highly recommend you get the purple Shadow version, both because it has an extra mod slot and, more importantly, because it uses heavy ropes, which will let you tie down big machines like Thunderjaws. If you want to see those heavy ropes in action, go check out my Thunderjaw video linked in the description. Okay, we've got a bunch of weapons, so how are we going to use them? Well, depending on how the Stalkers start the fight, you're either going to hit one of them with a Tear Blast arrow, or you're going to rope one of them down. It just depends on whether the first one you see is close to you or far away. If they're far away, then they're probably going to be sniping at you with the dart gun, in which case you should take that opportunity to land a Tear Blast arrow or 2 to knock off the dart gun, and if you're lucky, the Stealth Generator will get knocked off too. But what we really want to do is start tying Stalkers down with the Rope Caster. Remember, we need to turn the tables here and take this fight from being 3-on-1 to 1-on-1. The Rope Caster will help us do that because once you tie a Stalker down, it will be out of the fight for a whole minute and a half. That's right, you won't have to deal with that one for an entire 90 seconds, as long as you don't deal any damage to it. This is actually true for all machines. If you can get them tied down, they'll be immobilized for 90 seconds unless you start dealing damage. But that's okay, because for the Stalkers, we don't need to deal damage just yet. Our goal with them is to just take a couple out of the picture for a little while so we can deal with one by itself. So your first task is to get at least 2 of the Stalkers tied down, and while you're at it, you might as well tie the last one down too. Once you've got them all tied down, go back to the first one and hit it with a couple of freeze bombs to freeze it. Now go ahead and hit it with hardpoint arrows to finish it off. Repeat these steps with the last 2 until you've taken them all out. Now I know I made that sound really simple, and of course it's easier to describe than it is to pull it off, but the trick here is to make sure you're careful to stick to the pattern. Tie them all down, freeze and kill the first one, tie down the other 2, freeze and kill the second one, and so on. This will really click when you see it in action, so let's check out the live combat. Alright guys, so I'm here just outside a Stalker site. This is the one that is just south of Meridian. I think this is probably the site that most people will run into Stalkers for the first time, as you're kind of exploring around Meridian after you get here. It's the first one that's just kind of here in the jungle, so let me give you the typical rundown. I'm on very hard difficulty level. My outfit is, it's Karja Silk's heavy, but I'm basically simulating the Karja Silk's medium, which is the cheaper version, just because I'm only going to put 2 mods on here. And I have just a basic range resist, a basic melee resist on there. So this is basically the Karja Silk's medium that I'm wearing. And then for weapons, on the Sharp Shot Bow, I just have a couple basic handling mods so we can load and shoot a little faster. I do have blue mods on the Hunter Bow. I think it's fair that by this point in the game you'd have some blue mods, and you should definitely be putting those on your primary weapon, which would probably be a hunter bow. So I've got a handling one on there and 2 damage ones, so our hardpoint arrows do a little extra damage. On the sling, I just have a basic shock and a basic freeze boost. And then on the rope caster, I've got just some basic handling mods so we can shoot that a little bit faster. For skills, the only one I'm really going to make use of is hunter reflexes so that we can aim a little better when we jump, especially for the tear blast arrows. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is basically just run in and simulate a worst case scenario. If you knew you were rolling up on some stalkers, you could be sneaky and use a trip caster to set up some shock wires or something like that. But I think most of us end up having to deal with stalkers, you know, just by accident. You run by them as you're exploring, or you set off their flares, and then you end up having to fight the whole pack. So I'm just going to kind of set off these flares on purpose to simulate a worst case scenario. And here's the first one in front of us here. So I'm going to hit him with a tear blast arrow. And now that I can see him, I'll rope him down. And so as long as I don't do any damage to him, he'll stay like that for 1.5 minutes. So I'm just going to leave him there, and we'll see where the other ones are. Here's one more. And he's kind of running away from us, so we'll try and hit him with a tear blast arrow. They'll stay at a distance until their dart gun's destroyed. So you want to do that. You want to remove the tear blast arrows. Or remove the dart gun with the tear blast arrows. So we'll tie this guy down too. So now they're both tied down. And here's the third one coming in. Hit him with a tear blast arrow. And rope him down. So now we're going back to the first one. And I'm going to freeze him. And then I'll scan him real quick so we can see his components a little bit better. And now I'm just going to use hardpoint arrows, basically. And I'll try to aim for components, but you can just aim for the body, too. And so there you can see we already took care of one of them. So you're probably not going to take care of them that fast. I've been practicing this. So I'll go ahead and I'll kind of simulate this guy getting away, and we have to rope him down again. So we've got him roped down again. So I'll head over here and freeze this guy. And then we can just hit him with some arrows. If you deal enough damage in a short enough amount of time, they'll get stunned like that. But basically you just want to keep peppering him wherever you can hit him with hardpoint arrows, and there, that one's down. So now we can go ahead and freeze this guy with a couple of freeze bombs. We can scan him to see, well, I guess most of his components are gone already, but you do have to learn your dodge timing for this, for sure. The stalkers are very fast, so you have to be able to dodge to the sides and everything with the right timing. But you can see there, that's a pretty quick way to take these guys down. As you guys can see, as long as we stick to the pattern of tying all the stalkers down, we only have to deal with one at a time, which makes fighting the whole pack a whole lot easier. Now, if you get the hang of this strategy, I would actually recommend you swap out the sling and freeze bombs for a warbow and freeze arrows instead. Arrows take a lot less resources to craft than bombs, so you'll be more efficient if you use the bow. Remember, with the bow, you don't need to draw all the way to get full freeze damage. Fully drawing a bow only increases its accuracy, not its damage, so you can pretty much just hip-fire freeze arrows to freeze a machine quickly. That goes for your hardpoint arrows too when you're dealing damage to the stalkers after they're frozen. Don't waste time fully drawing, just aim for the center of the body, and even a partially drawn shot will land 9 times out of 10. Alright guys, that's my master machine hunting guide for stalkers. We covered some great tips for taking them down, and I hope it helped you out. For all the Horizon veterans out there, I'd be interested to hear your favorite ways to deal with stalkers, so go ahead and comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, or if you learned something, hitting that like button is always appreciated. I'm planning to cover all the difficult Zero Dawn machines, and I'm really looking forward to continuing this series for all the new machines in Forbidden West when it comes out in just a few weeks. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.